To start, I'm going to give a very quick overview of the Civility and Public Life programme that we've been working on in NILGA with the other LGAs in Scotland, Wales and England. Really, there's been mounting concern over the last number of years over the level of and rate of incidents of abuse and intimidation that elected members are suffering. And the 4 LGAs came together with a joint statement back in August 2020, really calling out the intimidation of abuse and abusive counsellors, pointing out that they were harmful, that they have an impact on you as public servants, and that we were going to commit to promoting positive debate. Like, all debate is good, or sorry, most debate is good. We want it to be positive for you to be able to fulfil your role. And we also want to make sure that our elected members are taken care of. So some of the work that the 4 LGAs have done includes a guide on digital citizenship. And there's some tools in this guide. We can certainly send around the links to it afterwards and some of the infographics that you might want to share on your social media. So things like 5 rules for engaging with you so that you welcome debate, but it should be polite, it should be respectful, that you won't tolerate abuse, harassment, racism, ageism, that there'll be nothing that is false or unverified, and you shouldn't post anonymously. And I suppose that last one is why we've come today. Kiva will give you more details on how they're stamping out this anonymous posting. There's also some rules of engagement on how you as a counsellor can make sure that any debate that you have on your social media pages is positive, and the support that is available to you, and also how you can diffuse conflict. So it's really about setting expectations, so pointing out those rules, leading by example yourself, considering some of the content you post, diffusing any conflict, knowing when to step back, how to protect your privacy, how to get and give support, and recording abuse and reporting serious issues. And we're working with Department of Justice at the moment to make sure that you have all the support you need, whether that be in security measures for your home or your office. That's something that isn't available to counsellors at the moment, but it is available to MLAs. And we're lobbying them to try and get this in the next mandate in the next electoral mandate for the Assembly, for it to be legislated for. Some of the work that we've been engaging in has been a call for evidence. You'll all have received a link to the survey a few months ago. It's still ongoing. We're still gathering that evidence. It's really for us to be able to understand the level of and the rate of incidents of abuse that you've experienced and the impact that it's had on you. I will email everybody at the end of the presentation just with a reminder of that link. Would be really grateful if you could fill it in. There is a way to identify your council area. So although it's anonymous, we would like to sort of look at if there's a pattern emerging in particular council areas, and also we'll be able to compare rates of abuse in Northern Ireland versus the rest of the UK. We have produced the guide on digital citizenship, which I mentioned. Next up is a guide for yourselves on how to handle intimidation. So giving you the tools and the knowledge and the ability to know what to do, when to cut it off, when to block people, when to take it a step further. There is an online harms bill going through Parliament at the moment, and the LGA are lobbying on our behalf on that. And as I mentioned, we're lobbying on better protection for councillors here. So that's a very brief overview of the programme. And in our work, we came across Legitimate. Kiva and Jared of Legitimate have joined us here this morning. Legitimate is a really future-facing public platform for debate, and we got a presentation on it a week or two ago, and we're so impressed that we didn't really want to hold back any longer. We wanted to introduce Legitimate to yourselves. I know there was a comment we received about you would have liked more notice. We just felt it was so important to get this off the ground that we went ahead and organised it for today. As I said, the event is being recorded, and we will get it out to as many counsellors as possible and run something in the future if we need to. But without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Kiva, who will take you through a demonstration of what the Legitimate platform can offer.
That's great, Lisa, thank you. And thanks for the opportunity to speak to you all today. I'm just going to share my screen here. Make sure everybody can see that. Okay. So my name's Kiva and I'm from a company called Legitimate. And my colleague Jared is also on the call, and we're really excited to tell you about how we can provide counsellors and public figures with a better, safer way to connect with your audience on the press. So being in a job or career that puts you in the public eye shouldn't mean being subjected to abuse and threats. Now more than ever before, public figures and their followers are being targeted by trolls and people hiding behind anonymous or fake accounts. The mental health implications of this are huge, and many people are suffering from stress and anxiety as a result of it. So I'm sure most of you have either suffered from this yourselves or know someone who has, and it should never be an accepted part of public life. But unfortunately, it's discouraging people from entering politics or making them want to leave. And for others, it means that they have to withdraw from social media completely and lose that connection with their audience. So that's where Legitimate comes in. We are a content distribution platform that protects its users against online abuse. It's a way for you to share your updates and opinions without opening yourself up to the negativity that comes with social media. And it is and always will be free to use. We offer a wide range of benefits to politicians, which I'll expand on over the next few slides. But in summary, and the big one is, firstly, we eliminate trolling. Our platform doesn't allow any sort of commenting. So this means you or your followers will not be subjected to insensitive or abusive opinions. You can also be contacted safely and securely through our platform. You can add a contact form to your profile where you can only allow people to fill it in if they verify their identity first. So this will provide you with another layer of protection from anonymous trolls. Also, Legitimate helps you to grow an audience in a number of different ways that I'll show in detail later on. It's super easy to create and share content on Legitimate, and we don't have a character limit, which means we're the ideal place for official statements, opinion pieces, and longer posts. Next, you can easily create and manage a newsletter within Legitimate. This would be a great way for you to provide like a weekly update to your constituents. And if you already have a list of email addresses that you send to, it's easy to add them into the platform. And finally, Legitimate is becoming a go-to platform for journalists for many of the same reasons I've mentioned. And we have over 2,000 journalists on the platform already. By having a profile, it makes it even easier for these journalists to keep up to date with your work. And again, it's completely free to use. So for the remainder of the presentation, I'm going to refer to this fictional counsellor, Jane Smith, so you can get a good idea of how Legitimate works and what it could do for you. So Jane was fed up with the abuse and threats she received on social media, like I'm sure many of you are. It was too stressful and detrimental to her mental health, and she needed a different way to let people know about all of the work she was doing, and that's why she decided to use Legitimate. So this is Jane's profile. And whether she creates content directly within Legitimate or elsewhere like a blog, a newspaper, or a party website, it all gets centralized into her profile. Her followers now know where to go to see all of her updates in one single place. And as you can see here, Jane has her messaging function turned on so that people can contact her. It's the blue button underneath her profile picture. She doesn't have to share her email address. And if she wants, she can make people verify their identity before they can click that button and fill in the form. The email subscribe button that's below that, again, I'll touch on in a few slides. And as you can see, there are no comments under the posts on Jane's profile page. She can now post updates without worrying about the barrage of abuse that she received on other platforms. And not only is she protecting herself, she's also eliminating the ability for others to be targeted in a thread. This is what our content creation feature looks like. And unlike other platforms, we have full editing capabilities. We also have a choice of layouts and the ability to schedule your post to publish at a later date. Although Jane has stopped using social media, she still has a lot of followers on those platforms. So she quickly linked her accounts, and now when she creates a post on Legitimate, she can automatically share it on her Twitter and Facebook without having to go anywhere near those sites. She just checks the little buttons in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen there. This is an example of one of Jane's posts, and unlike social media that limits the size of your post, Jane can now share her stories and updates in full and without restrictions. And again, there's no commenting below. Here's an example of a weekly newsletter that Jane creates about everything she's done that week. She can add photos and include any important information for the coming week. And as soon as she publishes it, it's shared with users in their feed, and it's also sent to all of her subscribers via email. So her constituents can now keep up to date with everything happening in their community. This is an example of an official statement that Jane wanted to release on a recent issue. And again, Legitimate allowed her to express her full thoughts without limits on characters. Jane also likes to release her statements this way, as over 100 local journalists who follow her receive it instantly via RSS feed and email to their inbox. So this is just an example of what happens when someone clicks that blue messaging button. This form appears and they fill it in, and the message gets sent to the Legitimate inbox, which is shown on the right there. And as I mentioned, if you activated verified messaging, only people who have first verified their identity can fill in the form. And this adds another way to protect yourself from anonymous trolls. If they haven't verified, this button will pop up, or this box will pop up. This is the email subscribe feature that I touched on earlier. And we want to make it as easy as possible for people to get your updates. So they don't need to sign up to Legitimate in order to subscribe to you via email. They just enter their email address, like the image at the bottom. But if they are signed up, they can hit the toggle to subscribe, like the image at the top. And we take data protection very seriously, and we comply with all of the GDPR guidelines. Legitimate provides Jane with some other tools and ways to help her to grow an audience. So she gets a personal RSS feed that many journalists love to use. And her profile also comes with a QR code that she can use on her printed material, like election posters and flyers. So if someone scans this QR code, it'll bring them straight to her profile page where they can follow her and subscribe. And then she also added the Legitimate email footer button to her email signature. It's that button there with her face on it. And clicking on this sends people to her profile where again they can follow her and subscribe. And we've run tests on this and we've seen an 80% click-through rate. So if you're sending dozens of emails every week, it won't take you long to grow your audience in Legitimate. So that's sort of a brief overview of how Jane uses Legitimate and the benefits that it has for her. We now want to make it as easy as possible for all of you to become part of this. And to save any time or hassle on your part, our team would like to set up provisional profiles for you all. We'll then send you over account details for you to take full ownership of. You can have a look around the platform, see if it works for you, and if not, your profile can be turned off before we launch. So we currently have, as I mentioned, over 2,000 journalists using our platform to grow an audience and centralise their content. Legitimate also verifies exactly what content belongs to them. We're working with a growing number of publications to centralise and verify their content too. And because we're pulling in thousands of articles from all over the internet based on these verified journalists, users browse content on our platform with the reassurance that it's from a real verified person. We aim to have all of the journalists in the UK and Ireland onboarded by the end of 2022. We'll be officially launching later this spring with a large media campaign and marketing campaign around it. And as part of that, we'd love to highlight how easy it is now to keep up to date with your local politicians alongside what Legitimate's doing to protect against online abuse. Legitimate will be the place that everyone goes to follow and keep up to date with their local councillors, MLAs, MPs, etc. And in the next 6 months, we'll be rolling out to political figures and parties across all of the UK and Ireland, as well as in the US. We're really excited about Legitimate and we'd really love to have you all on board. So thank you for listening. And I'd now like to open up the floor for any questions. I'm sure there's probably quite a few questions, but yeah, I'll stop sharing my screen now, and thanks for listening.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Kiva. Could I ask members maybe just to indicate in the chat, and we'll take the questions in order. Can I maybe ask you, Kiva, to detail how you verify identities, because I think that's important.
Yeah, so we basically use the same ID verification as banks use. So it's a scanning of an identity document, which would be like a passport or a driver's license. And then it's a liveness check where you have to like scan your face on your phone to ensure that you're really the person who's in the identity document. So it's basically what a lot of banks are using at the minute. And that's not, we don't hold any of that data or anything. That's a third party identity verification platform that we use. Jared, do you want to add?
Yeah, I would just add that you don't have to go through that process. If we create your account for you on your behalf, our team can verify all your details because we'll be interacting with you and know who you are. So that would bypass your need to scan any identity documents if we can do that for you.
Yeah, that would be if we are creating accounts for political figures or for like specific well-known journalists. We would be happy to do that. For someone who's just a user, they have to go through that process. Okay, so that's your way of verifying that there's no trolls, that the person making the comment is actually a real person, and there's traceability, yeah. I presume. There's no way of being a verified user on our platform unless you go through that process. If you want to interact with someone and you have that verified thing turned on, you have to be verified. There's no option to not be. Okay. Catherine Owen, can we have your question, please?
Hi, thanks very much, Lisa, for putting this on. Can you hear me okay? Because yes. My internet's a bit wobbly. Listen, Kiva and Jared, thanks very much. It's quite an exciting platform. I confess I'm not particularly fond of social media, but as probably most elected reps will say, it's a necessary evil. Mm-hmm. Now, I currently have a Facebook page with 5,300 people on it.
Yeah.
Now it's my own separate councillor page. I have my own private page, which I keep really, really tight. There's only about 300 people on there, pictures of the kitties, etc., etc. So it's a business page,
yeah,
and a fairly modest Twitter profile. So I'm quite blessed. My councillor page tends to be quite positive, but when they do come in, they're really cutting. Now, what way will it work as far as trying to link my Facebook page in? I am a wee bit worried. I think your platform is fantastic and love the fact that we can link in my Facebook page and Twitter. The only downside is that I do a lot of engagement in the comments, and you know, because you know that helps kind of humanize things and humanize me. But I appreciate that that's probably a small price that I'm going to have to pay in order to use this platform. But what will it actually look like on Facebook then? You said it'll link in with my Facebook. So what will the end user see on Facebook then whenever I use this platform, or if I maybe misunderstood you, Kiva?
Yeah, no. So that it was on the page where the content creation, there was the little small button to post to Facebook or Twitter. So you just put in your Facebook and Twitter details in the back in your profile settings, and then automatically when you check that button, a little card will appear on your Facebook or a little card will appear on your Twitter. The same way if you were sharing an article from a different newspaper, it would just pop up and then people can click on that and it'll bring them to your post. Am I missing anything with that, Jared, as well?
No, I think that's exactly how it works. It'll just say, you know, Councillor Catherine Owen has just published a post on Legitimate, and then it'll show you the little card. And if people click it, it'll take you to Legitimate to read it. And it's just a way that if you don't want to interact on Facebook or Twitter anymore, or have to log into those platforms and like subject yourself to abuse, if that is something that you suffer on that platform, then you can just use legitimate, but keep your ability to push out your message on those other platforms.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Does that explain how it will look? And
yeah, I suppose until I really get a bit of a play about with it. So no, I'm more than happy to have a go at it. And you know, we'll see how it goes. Certainly it does appear to be the way ahead, and we've collectively as politicians, I think we've got to really stand side by side and try and sort this out. And if there's a platform there, then so be it, because I think we're all suffer from this, and until we all stand side by side.
I think Catherine may have frozen.
Try and sort this out then, you know, thingy and numbers, but strength in numbers. Don't worry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We go to Emmett McAleer now.
Thank you, and thanks Kiva and Jared for that. I've my camera turned off here, just I'm in mid-throne and the internet connection isn't that great, so if I put the camera on it'll probably slow down the process. But no, it's a very interesting app, or a very interesting development, and I think it's something that's very, very exciting moving forward. Yeah, I think that's a great question from Catherine's, and I suppose, yeah, just to clarify the response there, if you have, you know, more than one Facebook account, but they're obviously linked to, whether it's your personal account or your counsellor page, you can define that you want to post solely to one or the other.
Yeah.
I have another question just in relation. You've mentioned there that there are a number of journalists or a number of media outlets linked at present, and hopefully by the end of the year you hope to have everybody on these islands linked. At the minute, I suppose locally, are there many journalists well, either in the Fermanagh and Tyrone area or in the north of Ireland here? And this a different question, but another question I have is just in relation there, you'd suggested or offered assistance from your group there to set up profiles for councillors that were interested in that at the minute, and obviously that'll set them up as verified accounts. And that, what sort of detail or input would you require for that? Because I suppose there'd be some of us maybe are a wee bit paranoid about handing over to some of that ability and liking to do things ourselves and seeing things through ourselves. So just if you can answer that, that'd be great. Hey, thank you.
Yeah, first of all, on the publication side of things, we have just started in the last couple of weeks developing partnership with publications. We currently have a good number of journalists from Reach on board, but we're actually in later stage talks to onboard the whole lot of them, and we're also in very late stage talks with JPI Media, who own quite a few publications in the north as well. We do foresee this just building very quickly, because like last week we onboarded 4 publications in a matter of like 2 or 3 days, and it's going sort of the same way here. So at the minute I don't have exact figures of how many in the north we have, but I know that we do have quite a few, and we're hoping just to build on that in the next couple of weeks. With regards to the profiles, you can definitely build out your profiles yourself. If you want to do that's no problem, and it doesn't take an awful lot of time to do that. It was just we wanted to save the sort of time and hassle for you. If you want to build out your own profile, we can just go in and bypass the identity verification for you, so you don't have to scan documents or anything like that. Once we get the okay from you, we can do that. Or if you want us to build your profile, we just need an email address basically, so that we can send it on to you, and we can build everything out from there. So we don't need any sort of sensitive information. It's based on information that's out there already. Does that answer your question, or?
Yeah, no, I think that sounds fairly painless. Thanks for that. I suppose, just in relation to the journalist question, I'm asking that because I would be one of the councillors that wouldn't be that good at, I'm a first term councillor, I wouldn't be that good at liaising with the press or issuing press releases fairly constantly. I think I'm kind of fortunate in a lot of the stuff that that we're doing here is being picked up on by the media just because of the impact of it. But I think that would be definitely a benefit. Yeah. So obviously, the more people that get involved, the better. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, because we're thinking that, like, we've been working with journalists. We initially started off as a platform for journalists, so we've been working with them from the very start. And they said that access to politicians like this would be ideal for them, to be able to follow a politician just within the platform and be updated every time something new comes up without having to go through press releases and go through media or communications officers. They said would be ideal for them. So I think it's going to open up a relationship there too, but in a safe, like, protected way.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Thank you.
Over to you, Ray, for the next question.
Thank you very much, and thank you for putting on the event. Apologies, my computer decided to upgrade or update or something just as I tried to log in, so I was a few minutes late. So I may ask questions that you've already covered.
No problem at all.
First of all, is there anywhere we could access reviews? You know, people in our role in public life who have been using this, that we could say, how did you find it? How accessible was it? Did it work? Did it do what it said in the tin? Is there some place that we could access? That's question one, that we could access that. I'll go on to the second question. Second question is, I kind of live on social media. I've got one screen here that I do whatever I'm doing, and the other screen is my posts, and I'm engaging all day on the other screen. Would I lose any of that opportunity if I were to engage through you? So those are the two questions. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, we have not got anywhere at the minute to have reviews. There's nowhere for reviews yet because we're so new and because we've only started working with politicians in the last maybe month or so. You can get on and have a look. There's only about 8 to 10 on at the minute because this is our first. We wanted to come here first. So you could reach out to people that are already on there, but there's nowhere that you could actually get reviews. You can we can send you over a profile. You can go in and have a little nosy around it without committing to anything. But no, unfortunately, there is nowhere to have reviews yet. We've been endorsed by the NAC. They endorsed us. Belfast's mayor endorsed us. There's different people that have endorsed us, but there's no actual. That's what we should actually do. We should get some reviews and put them on the site of people that are endorsing us, but we haven't actually centralized that anywhere yet. So unfortunately not. With regards to engaging with social media, we're not trying to prevent you from engaging. You know, we're just trying to provide an alternative for people who feel like they can't do that in a safe way. You know, people who are putting themselves out there or putting updates on about what they're doing in their community and then being targeted and abused and threatened. We're an alternative. We're not trying to take away your link there with your audience on social media. You can continue to use Twitter or whatever your preferred platform is as much as you want. We're like an additional or like an add-on. You can share your content through us with your Twitter, and then you can go into Twitter and have your interactions underneath. It's just on our platform you can't interact underneath.
Okay, thank you. No, that's very helpful, and this is great. I get called things people can't spell, so it will be a great opportunity to work with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just add, I think as well, what we would love to be is kind of a platform where everyone knows you can go as default and find your councillor or representative, and then we're not a social media platform. We're a way to follow and get updates from your local representatives, and then if you want to engage in social media, then you can use those platforms as much as possible. And on top of that, there's still a huge sway, and it's actually grown, of people that are leaving social media or not using it as much, or maybe they're not technical and they don't want to sign up to Twitter and Facebook. Those people can just visit your profile on Legitimate and put in their email, and from that moment on they can get a weekly update or a monthly update of what you're doing in the community, and they don't need to go into those platforms and kind of visit your profile every time to follow up with you.
I think it's important to point out as well that the service that Legitimate are offering, and this is why we were so impressed, is it's the verification of the anonymous people out on social media. I mean, it's something that government and others have been calling for from Facebook and Twitter for many years. And this Northern Ireland startup has come in and done it. And I think it's something we should be proud of and promote. And as councillors, if you feel that abuse is something that is deterring you from your role in councillors as a councillor, and also those new entrants to councils, those new councillors who are maybe quite lost or overwhelmed, this is a way of managing your content and making sure that you're almost eliminating the potential for abuse.
Yeah.
And the impact on your well-being should hopefully be positive through using this. Are there any, sorry, I'd just like to acknowledge the comment from Councillor Barr, Lord Mayor of Armagh City, Banbridge and Craigavon. So you'll note that, Kiva.
Yeah.
There's a question from Martin. Go ahead, Martin.
Yeah, good morning, everyone, and thanks very much for the presentation. I'm just exploring the outworkings of what you're talking about, Kiva.
Yeah.
I suppose some of us are very rural councillors, and we have a relationship with journalists, and very often I would get a call from a journalist saying, "There's been an incident in Mid-Ulster. Are you the local councillor?" And I say, "Well, actually, that incident is 50 miles away from me." So I can imagine where journalism, because of pinpointing a councillor, there'd be a quicker response time, because everything's so instant now, and news is so instant. And I can see where the outworking of that would be that there's a race to press, isn't there? There's a race now to print. We've got live media, and you can see where print media perhaps is not catching up, but has to learn new ways.
Yeah.
So I'm just pointing that out, that very often you have to start ringing around and doing the work of journalism to find that actual journalism, and that, in a sense, would pinpoint the story. Whether the councillor wishes to comment or not is for that person, but I can see where the rush to news is accelerated by being part of this. Okay. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks.
One of our upcoming features as well will be the ability to find all of your local representatives based on your postcode. So you could go to Legitimate, put in your postcode and see every representative from your specific area, and also the ability to create your own list of journalists and create a press release and instantly send it to them through the platform.
Have we any further questions? Does anybody want to make any comments on what they think of the service, or, if there's any sort of concerns you might have, or positives, of course? Go ahead, Alex.
Just an interesting, well, I hope it's an interesting question. How do you make money?
That's usually our first question.
I'm thinking if it's an esoteric service you're providing free of charge, I'm just wondering how you make money. Obviously, you've got to make money. Your salaries have to be paid. They're back. I'm just wondering how that works. I mean, is there advertising, or what's the score?
No, we've actually been really, really fortunate, and InvestNI has grant funded us up until now to develop the platform, and we've just been approved for another grant to enable us to develop more tools. So we actually haven't taken a salary in a year and a half. We've just been working on our grant funding and building it out. But what we see is, because we have this community of journalists now getting built up, that will be our revenue stream going forward, in relation to like advertising jobs, having a journalism jobs board, having sort of PR tools to link journalists to public relations professionals, and charge the public relations side of things to access the journalists. So the political side of Legitimate is completely free, and it's not going to be monetized in any way. That's always just going to be a free tool there to do something good, because we have this other side of the platform that's journalist focused, and that's where we're going to make our money in, say, 12 months down the line. We're thinking that that's where, after building out the big community of journalists, that we would have the ability to charge for advertising jobs, charge for public relations access and stuff like that. So
Yeah, fair play to you. Obviously, it's entrepreneurial skill. You've seen the secret of success in business, see a need and fulfill it, and you've obviously seen the need, and you're lucky to get in with Invest NI before they have applied the handbrake.
We were really lucky, yeah. So we don't know about this next grant, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But no, we just saw such a need. We saw such horrible things on the news, such horrible things on social media, you know, and it had just gotten to a stage where something had to be done. And I know there's the online harms bill, and they are trying to do something really good there. I know Twitter and Facebook have different processes in place, and they're trying to do things. Their platforms are so reliant on the amount of users they have. If they cut out all the anonymous users, their stock prices would plummet. You know, it wouldn't make sense for their investors. So although they're trying to do something, you know, to fix it, I think it's sort of like the horse is bolted with those platforms to try and pull back and verify the accounts that are not verified would be really an impossible task for them. So that's why we wanted to come in with something completely new, an alternative. Again, we are not a social media. We're not trying to be a social media. We're trying to be an alternative way for you to share your content without that whole social media side of things, you know?
Yeah, it's a very interesting concept. I mean, I don't use Twitter, and I have the basic rule in Facebook. 2 times I don't write in Facebook. One's when I have alcohol taken, and that doesn't happen very often. Or 2, in the immediacy of something or in anger. Yeah. Because, I mean, there have been times I've written some just about to push the button and said, no, I'll end up in court on that one about it. But
take a couple of deep breaths first.
The difficulty with Twitter is there's a need for immediacy in it, so I just don't use Twitter.
Yeah,
What does annoy me about Facebook is the barrack room lawyers, those people who blame the council for everything. They're quick to say what to do, and I haven't realised after 50 years that councils don't do roads. You know, they still think we're doing the roads and we're getting the blame for it. And I mean, they really get me down. And the difficulty with Facebook is that it's very easy to put a name up and put if someone, I mean, I'm open on Facebook about everything about myself.
Yeah.
I do get into bother, as you probably appreciate, but I hope there's nothing malicious intended from me. But it's those people who hide behind anonymity and are really vocal about things, yet they haven't the confidence in their own views to identify themselves and lead.
Stand by it. Yeah.
So that's why I must admit I'll put a bit more thought into yours. But best wishes anyway.
Thank you.
Hope you start making money soon.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Just acknowledge as well that you have the endorsement of Councillor Billy Webb, Mayor of Antrim and Newton Abbey Borough Council.
Thanks very much.
We'll go back to Ray for another question.
Thank you, Lisa. Just in terms of your product development, just to say, I came into politics as a psychotherapist and really became entirely focused on how politics could be couched around the issue of well-being. So it's lovely to see something here that is focused entirely on well-being. I mean, for example, a moment ago when we were talking there, when Alex was mentioning about roads, and it was really nice to see us all nodding and going, oh, we've all had that, you know? So there is a platform or an opportunity, let's put it that way, for us to look at our own well-being. So as you develop the product, to look at kind of opportunities for well-being, how do we debrief from stuff? How do we kind of look after our own well-being? Because it would seem to me that this is out of a place of needing to look at well-being. And so if, you know, as you look at product development, if there were workshops, themes, articles on well-being, you know, I laugh, it goes over my head, you know, when recently I was told in Bangor that we were losing a development project because they didn't like the look of my beard. Now that is utterly ridiculous, you know, but I mean, it was everything from I had stolen the money to goodness knows what else. Well, I don't know, I just seem to have a framework where it goes over my head, but you know, I realize in doing that, I'm part of the problem as well. When people call me a Sudgumite, which when you reconfigure the spelling, you realize what they're actually calling it, which is, you know, their choice, but it's offensive. by letting that go,
Mm-hmm.
I'm part of the problem. So when I saw recently some of the stuff that we were talking about, politicians and social media, I realized that maybe I'm not in the solution, I'm in the problem when I'm letting this go so often. So maybe having some frameworks, some platforms where we can discuss all of this and we can take it forward could be something I think could be useful. Sorry for the ramble. Thanks.
No, not at all. Thank you. Thanks for your feedback. And it is something that we certainly are concerned about, you know, and that, yeah, something we could build on further down the line. Thank you.
Okay, and over to yourself, Yul.
Okay, thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you, Kiva. Certainly, it's a first-class initiative from what I've picked up, and I think it has the potential to be extremely beneficial. I've just got two, I suppose, very simple questions. How does Joe Public get to know about this platform? And then the second one is, using the platform, does that prevent the public from interacting with your own social media, a space such as Facebook?
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, firstly, thanks for your questions. We want to launch this. We haven't officially launched. We want to launch this at the end of spring with a big marketing and sort of publicity drive around it. We feel if we had like a massive percentage of the councillors, MPs, MLAs, TDs, you know, all using this, that would be all over the news, you know, and then everyone would hear about it, and then everyone would know where to go to start following their councillors. So we're thinking it will be the publicity and marketing drive that we have once we launch that's going to push this into just Joe Public sort of sphere, and they'll hear about it and then they'll know to get on and be able to use it. And with relation to your own social medias, you can add a link to your social media onto your platform, onto your profile if you want. That's how our journalists use it. They have links to their social media on their profile. So someone can then click the link and be sure that that's your actual social media, because that's another thing we found, that people are creating fake social media accounts for certain people. So if you want, you can add a link to your own social media on your profile, and then people can go to that. We were sort of thinking that's obviously something that you will choose for yourself. We're not going to add them in for you, but if you want that, you can have that. Sorry, the last bit of your question then was the link with your audience, was it?
Yes, can say constituents go to your Facebook page and have a look directly?
Yeah, so if they visit your profile and they want to interact with you, they can click on the messaging button, and that'll open up a form where they can type a message to you. So then that'll go into your little inbox thing. It's like a little email, and that'll be sent directly to you, and then you can respond to them, or you can choose not to, or they can still use your social media the way they've always used it. So you can use your Facebook and your Twitter in the exact same way. We're just trying to add a sort of an alternative for people that don't want to use it in the same way too.
That's good. Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll go back to Catherine now.
I've turned my video off this time just in case my internet isn't as strong. So hopefully you can hear me okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, fabulous. Listen, I just wanted to pick up on something that Ray had said there, actually, which is absolutely spot on. I do have a question, a third and final question as well. I do think that, I mean, I'm one of the newest councillors, I think. I'm assuming maybe across this panel, only there in 2019 co-opted on. But I do think, and I very much had hesitations and reservations on very much a conversation with my husband about, you know, and my son, this is what you might see said about mum, and this is what you might say, you know, don't rise to it. Mm-hmm. So I'm personally delighted, and certainly from a female perspective as well, coming in, I'm delighted. But and I think Ray is right. You know, one thing that does worry me is this kind of perception that in order to come into politics, we have to have a thick skin. And I think personally, I would be the reverse of that. And I think to come into politics, we have to be human. We have to have a heart. We have to want to have compassion. We want to have empathy, and be human, and be able to engage with people on a normal level. And the more and more abuse that we get, the more thicker skinned we get, and the more tough and hard nosed, and to a certain degree as well, heartless. So I think, you know, the abuse that we get actually counteracts what makes somebody a good councillor and what makes somebody a good representative. So I personally think that is something that needs to stop, and needs to stop very, very quickly, because it is getting out of hand. And these battle cries that seem to happen, that, you know, let's all have a pylon, is not helpful for anybody. So that's just something I wanted to kind of say alongside what Ray had said. So if I can just, my third and final question, and then I'll be quiet, is how do we get the ball rolling? Do we will you email us out, or do we, you know, pick up with you after this, or what's the next step? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Noah. Your comments so important, and it's the way you're saying as well about the pylon. We noticed that too, and that was another thing that really stood out to us, that it was a pylon onto you, but it was also a pylon onto anyone else that had maybe supported you in the thread underneath it. So it wasn't only even the politician that was getting abused, it was then going into other just normal people that were liking something or making a comment, trying to nearly support you underneath, were also being abused. So that's another thing that our platform eliminates. It just takes all of that away, you know. So but yeah, it's really important. The fact, like, we've been speaking to councillors that don't share anymore what they do. They're out there every single day on the ground doing really good work, and nobody knows unless they're actually directly out there with them, you know, because they're afraid to share it on social media, because they'll get comments about what they look like, or, you know, other things. And we just wanted a way that people could still share the really good work that they were doing without having to engage in all that. We understand as well that engagement is important for you, but we just wanted to provide a way of sharing your content without the abuse. And then if you want to engage then in Facebook or in Twitter underneath posts or comments, that there was the option to do that too. The verified messaging as well enables you to engage in a safer way, because there is that verified element. So it's not someone with a fake photo and a fake name saying something to you. It's maybe someone that lives in your constituency that's saying, oh look, I think there's flooding down the road or whatever, and then you can pick up, you know, it's a real person, you know, it's a real message, you know, it's come from a real account, and you can engage that way too. In relation to next steps, we're happy to maybe liaise with Lisa. That might be the easiest way to get email addresses. We can build you out a provisional profile. You can get in, have a little look around it, see if it's for you or not. If it's not, you just click a button and it's unpublished, and then that's it. You don't have to be on the platform before we launch, and we'll give advance notice. Like, we'll be launching in a month, we'll be launching in 2 weeks. So if you want to remove yourself from it before launch, you can, or if you want to be a part of it, you can too. We just feel like the more people that are a part of it, the bigger it can be, because then normal users will go, oh no, I know all of the politicians are on this, or all of my councillors are on this, or, you know, so it will make it grow faster if everyone sort of comes on board. But we do also appreciate that not everyone wants to be a part of it. So Lisa, would that be okay with you if we just liaise with you for next steps? Or
we will send out your details, Kiva, along with some of the tools and the survey link that I mentioned earlier. We'll send it all in one email to all councillors, as well as a copy of this recording. Okay. And the individual councillors will contact you themselves. Okay. I think it's easiest in terms of GDPR, because we can share a list of email addresses.
Yeah, no problem at all. That's brilliant.
Go ahead, Alex.
Thanks very much for allowing me in the second time. First of all, my apologies for not formally thanking you for your presentation. There's something called your legitimate.io, that domain. As I Google that, it says the Internet country code for top-level domain IO is nominally assigned to the British Indian Ocean Territory. What's the relevance of your domain IO?
So IO is something that a lot of tech companies are using now, because whenever all the .coms and .co.uk's and .ies and all got released, people bought them up as a business. So the person who owns legitimate.com wants over £1 million for legitimate.com. So we can't buy legitimate.com off them. So, and that's what a lot of tech companies are now buying IOs instead, because it allows them to have the name of the company that they want without having to pay for this .com thing. People were very smart at the very start of the internet and bought jet.com and housing.com and any word, because they were like £5 or £6 back then, and now they're selling them on. That's actually what they do for a living, and they're making millions and millions of pounds a year selling on domain names. So that's why we're IO.
That's interesting. It's a bit like sort of vehicle registration numbers being bought and sold by themselves. They don't have anything, but you get, if you have AIL 9999, it means very little, but BIL 1 gets you a fortune. So you've seen a niche. Somebody's seen a niche there.
Someone has, and this guy, the guy that owns ours, has sold millions of pounds worth of them. So that's how he makes his money. So.
All right. Oh, the neoliberal in me makes me smile at that. Thank you very much.
Okay, if there are no further questions, I think we'll bring things to a close, 4 minutes ahead of schedule. So I want to thank Caoimhe and Gerard for a really good, interesting presentation. And thank you all for engaging in the debate and asking the questions that you needed. I'm only at the end of an email. If you need me, I'm going to be emailing out this afternoon all the bits and pieces I've promised, and at a request there for it to be emailed to member services too, because no doubt there'll be lots of questions. So happy to do that as well. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. Thanks very much for having us, and thanks for listening. And if there's anything at all, just drop us an email. Any further questions, or if you want to follow up and get a provisional profile created, we'd love to do that. So just let us know and we can get that done and sent over.
Thanks very much.